Good morning. Thank you for attending today's 2021 Fall Conference presentation on sole custody reporting. This presentation is being offered to you by the Bureau of Financial Reporting and Oil Spill Remediation. My name is Jonathan Golden, and joining me today's presentation will be Khushbu Chichani. For today's agenda, we're going to talk about what are sole custody funds, what is a sole custody bank account, the concept of fund versus account, the information we collect and how it is used, the key reporting dates. Actually using the sole custody application, which we put into this prior year, fiscal year ending 2021, is when it went live. So we're doing a quasi walkthrough of the application and then other useful information. So sole custody funds are essentially bank accounts and investment accounts and short-term investment pool. These are state funds that are invested in the short-term investment pool, are actually part of the New York State General Checking account. These STIP is intended to maximize investment returns in a safe and secure manner. STIP funds start with 7 in the statewide financial system, and excess sole custody funds may be transferred to it. Funds invested in STIP should equal the cash balance report through the statewide financial system as of March 31st. So sole custody bank account are basically accounts held outside of the New York State Treasury in the sole custody of a New York State or of a state official. These are maintained by the agency for specific revenue collection and other authorized sole custody purposes. So a fund versus account. Good way to think of it is bank accounts, STIP accounts, investment accounts, they roll up into a special revenue fund or a general fund or debt. So it could be any one of the major fund types in the state. So it could be a one-to-one relationship or it could be one-to-many. So in the case of a couple of the special revenue funds that we've mentioned here, we got Suny Revenue Collection Fund, which that number is comprised of 56 separate bank accounts, whereas the State University Student Loan Repayment Fund is comprised of 2 bank accounts. Now I'm going to turn it over to Khushbu to talk about a couple things.
Thank you, John. Good morning, everyone. My name is Khushbu Chichani, and I'll start with some sole custody statistics for the state fiscal year ended 2020-2021. 1,208 reports were filed by 226 departments and 42 agencies. There were over 1,300 bank or investment accounts and 29 different STIP funds, which were reported under 109 different fund classification reference. Following are the laws in which the sole custody reporting is required. State Finance Law Section 8 requires that a comptroller keep, audit, and state all accounts in which the state is entrusted. State Finance Law Section 116 require public officer or agencies to provide statement for account maintained on the state's behalf. This information is collected in an online system annually, and it is used to generate New York State's required financial statement on cash as well as GAAP basis. What information is collected? For reporting purposes, we collect following information: report name, report number. They are generally user-defined, but report number usually is the last 4 digits of bank account. Statutory reference refers to reference of any legislature requiring that account or fund. Purpose refers to grounds for which the account is needed. Revenue description, disbursement description, basically what the receipt and payment is about. Further, we also collect full bank account number and name of the bank, aggregate yearly transaction data and required, which includes transfer between sole custody account, New York State Treasury transaction, and other type of deposit and disbursement. All bank account balance, investments, and STIP balance needs to be reported as of March 31st. Bank account balance includes outstanding checks and deposit in transit. As I mentioned earlier, this information is collected to generate the sole custody report on cash as well as GAAP basis. Cash balances collected for sole custody reporting is used to prepare Schedule C4, which is a part of Comptroller's annual report on cash basis of accounting. It is further used in preparation of basic financial statement and other supplementary information. The sole custody report related information collected like purpose, revenue source, statutory reference, and others are also used to update fund classification manual. Fund classification manual is reviewed and updated yearly, and you can refer it using the link mentioned in the slide. For the fiscal year ended March 31st, 2021, New York State sole custody funds and account reported on cash basis total $54.3 billion. This is how the Schedule C4 looks like on Comptroller's annual report on cash basis of accounting. This is the statement of net position on GAAP basis and the balance sheet on GAAP basis. Following the timeline which we observe, by January or earlier, application is available for agencies to review and update sole custody report information. Expect an email between January and February that will be asking agency to confirm the contact information. If there are new contacts, they will receive a user ID and password. By March, agency should verify sole custody bank reconciliation. It should be current and all pending items must be cleared. Confirm that the report information is accurate. April 1st is the official sole custody reporting start date, and submission must be completed by April 30th. Around May or June, a random selection of report is done for additional review. If supporting documentation is not attached to those reports, selected agencies are contacted to provide bank statement, March 31st reconciliation, and other outstanding check listing. Thank you. I will now pass it back to John, who will now take you through the application.
So the report custody report flow goes from preparer to reviewer to OSC. And then the status goes from not started to ready for review and OSC review. So the preparer takes the report from the not started status to the started status to the ready for review, and where the reviewer comes in and does their review, and then it comes into OSC review. Each reporting department should have at least 2 users, one preparer and one reviewer. When we assign rights in the system, users are actually given both preparer and reviewer roles unless we are otherwise directed. But what I want to note is that person preparing the report cannot review the report. The system will not allow that. So to access the sole custody reporting application, we use online services. You can access online services at the link on the top part of the screen here. These are the applications that are available on online services. And as you can see, sole custody reporting is one of those applications. Or if you want to get right directly to the login screen, the link on the bottom will take you right directly to the login screen. At this screen, this is the actual login screen. Enter your user ID and your password. And then the user ID and password go here, and then you just click login. Once you select login, it'll bring you to this screen here. If you have other online applications assigned to the same user ID, they would appear here. To access your particular application, you would click on the sole custody word there to enter the system. Then you get to this I agree page. Please read over this information, then click in the box I agree to the above, and then select OK. Report your selection. So these are actually the current view of the system. As you can see, like the prior 2 years, 2020 and 2021, are available for view only, where 2022 is actually open at this point for review purposes. So it's a previous year report are available to view at any time. So sole custody report is actually made up of 5 different components, and we're going to talk about each of these components. We're going to talk about the report account information. The deposit and disbursements we'll actually do together because they're handled very similarly. And then we're going to talk about the composition of account balance at year end, and then the reconciled bank balance. So this is the report selection page once you log in. For this particular login here for the Office of Employee Relations, there are 3 reports available. But we do have some departments out there that are considered proxy departments. And basically what a proxy department is, they have rights to their own department, and they have rights to basically the departments that would be considered possibly underneath them. For example, Department of Corrections Central Office would have access to their central office sole custody reports, as well as all the correctional facilities across the state. So a home office user, a main office user of Department of Corrections would, when they log in, they would actually see a listing of department numbers and names of departments that they could access. Whereas if one of their correctional facilities, let's say Attica, for example, if someone from Attica's facility logged in, they would only be able to see the reports associated with that particular facility. So what we ask preparers and reviewers to do is to review and make any updates to the report name, report number, statutory reference, purpose, revenue description, or disbursement description. We also ask that you confirm the following: bank account number, bank name, type of account. And if any changes are needed to those, unfortunately, you are unable to make those changes. We need to make those changes for you. So what you would need to do is you would need to contact us to make those changes. And this is the contact link here. So to verify the information, just review the information in the box. If you realize that something needs to be changed, you can type right directly into this box. Once you've verified or made the changes, just simply click to verify. And what also I would like to note is these fields cannot be left blank. This is what the screen appears like after clicking to verify, or any other function that you do when entering in the information or selecting next. This is called a blackout screen. It's basically the system is processing, and this screen typically disappears fairly quickly. So when would you add a new report? Well, if you have a new bank account with a new purpose, or if you have a previously unreported bank account. If you're unsure whether or not you need to add a new report, just ask us. And then please do not add advance accounts or petty cash accounts, because they are not considered sole custody accounts. So to create a new report, if needed, you would select the Create New Report button here. And that would take you to this report page where you would need to fill in the information on the report number, which we suggest using the last 4 digits of the bank account number. The name of the report, again, this is user defined, something meaningful to you. The statutory reference, the purpose, the revenue source, and description. Again, as I said, these fields cannot be left blank. And then you would select Save and Close. This would actually, once you click Save and Close, it brings you back to the report selection screen where you would need to select the report that you just created. Go into that report again, and then you'd have to create the financial instrument. The financial instrument is essentially the bank account. Here, we ask that you fill in the full account number And then you would fill in the institution, which is actually from a drop-down list. If that institution that you're selecting is not part of the drop-down list, please contact us. You can enter a user instrument name, which is that's a field that could be left blank if so desired. And then instrument type. And again, the instrument type is going to be from a drop-down list. So select the type of, if it's a savings account or checking account or certificate of deposit, etc. Once you've added that information, and once you've added that, click save, then it's going to bring you to this screen, which is going to ask you to activate the instrument. And just do that by clicking that button, activate. This is the report home screen, and would like to point out that as a preparer or a reviewer, there is a to-do list, which is pointed out up here. And it's going to take you through it's going to show you each of the steps as you go through them. And so you can see here, the preparer has already verified all the report information, which they're redundant. See, these boxes are all they say verified. If you're looking at it and said, oh, I got to make a change, just click on the verified button. That'll allow changes to be made, make the appropriate change, and then click the button again. And we got the red, basically the bank account balances need attention. This is just telling you that the bank account balance in this particular report is blank at this particular time. So to actually get into the sole custody and activities reconciliation part, you would either click on the buttons under the go-to, or you can enter it by going to the sole custody and activities reconciliation part on the left-hand side of the screen. This is the sole custody and reconciliation screen, at least a portion of it. And what we're trying to accomplish with this, there's basically a status bar on the top, which is we're trying to get all check marks across the top. So as we go through each section, you're going to see they'll stay either checked or they will turn to red X's, which means they don't agree to the balance. So to get into the sole custody and activities reconciliation area, you can select the button below the report home screen. This will take you through each of the topics, topic by topic, or you can select one of the links below and go into a specific topic if you know what you want to address. My recommendation, if you're going through this, is to go through each topic one by one. So now we're going to talk about the deposits and disbursement summary portion of the reconciliation and activities. The first section is going to be for revenue disbursements are going to be to or from other sole custody accounts. These are revenues paid from one sole custody account to another, or it can include accounts from another agency. Most of the time they're going to be within the same agency, but they could be to or from another agency. With deposits from the state treasury or disbursements to the state treasury, any revenues received from the state's general checking bank account these would be monies transferred from OSC's cash management to your sole custody account. These deposits should be listed separately by the SFS account fund number. And then any disbursements to the state treasury, these are typically made by cash management sweeps from your sole custody account to a SFS fund. These disbursements should be listed separately by SFS fund number. When determining the proper fund number to use, please use the fund that the monies ultimately end up with. So if cash management sweeps your fund, your bank account, your sole custody account into state fund 10050, but then is ultimately transferred to 22311, use fund 22311. If those funds are sent into or swept or moved to multiple funds, please list each of those funds individually. And then other deposits and other disbursements would be anything other than sole custody to sole custody or cash management. For other revenues, it would include interest, fees, fines, etc. For other disbursement, it would include refunds, personal expenses of inmates or patients, or any other purposes. So if you go through topic by topic, the first thing you're going to see is adjustments to opening balance. Now, this really should be used in very rare circumstances, but we do realize that errors occur from time to time. So after the report has been submitted in the previous year and you're going through and you realize, oh, well, we made a mistake and the balance is different, such as that you identified a transposition after the fact. In this case, you would use that to enter an adjustment. You would select yes. When you select yes, that will open up the screen for a reason. So anytime there's an adjustment, you have to provide a reason for that adjustment. And then you would enter the net balance. If you need to increase your balance, you would enter a positive adjustment. Once you select next, that adjustment will actually be added to the deposits portion of your of the application. If you need to reduce your balance, you would enter in a negative adjustment. This negative adjustment would then become part of your current year's disbursements. The next section is deposits from other sole custody reports. And I'm going to mention at the same time as I'm doing this, the disbursements part works the exact same way. So if you have more than one instrument on this report, you'd select the instrument or account that those funds were either received into or sent to. The next step would be select the account those funds were received from or sent to. If it's a disbursement, this is provided when it says select instrument. There's going to be a list of accounts to select from. And then you're going to enter in the amount, and then you're going to click save the transaction. Then the next part would be if you had received monies from another account, you would list those separately. So each individual account that you receive money, sole custody funds received from, you would enter those individually. Once all the sole custody deposits have been entered at this point, or disbursements, if you're working on the disbursements, select next. The next section is deposits from state treasury or disbursements from state treasury if you're working on disbursements. If you received any deposits from the treasury, you would select yes. I just want to point out that these are the default on these when going through topic by topic is no, so you'll have to click yes to actually open them up. So in this case, yes, then you're going to select the fund. That fund is going to be from a drop-down list here. So if you know the fund code, you can enter in the whatever that code is, and then click on the appropriate fund. Or if you know the description of the fund, you can enter that in for the search. Once you selected that, you'd enter in the transaction amount, and then hit save, and repeat the process if you received monies from another fund, or if it's just the one fund, then you can select next. Next section is other deposits and other disbursements if you're working on the disbursement section. Here is where you would enter in any deposits or disbursements that are not part of the sole custody to sole custody transactions or to or from the state treasury. Here, you would enter in the purpose. You need to enter in the reason for the transaction or purpose of the transaction. So for like deposits, we're going to use interest, for example. You'd enter in interest earned, it's simple, and then the total dollar amount for the year. We don't need month by month transactions. So you can report these like transactions in aggregate. So you enter interest, enter in the dollar amount, select save, and then you're going to repeat the process if you've earned fees or any other type of transactions. Again, you're going to enter in those amounts in aggregate. Once that's done, you select next, and this is what I wanted to point out here, that we now have addressed the ending balance. We have an ending balance, $700. You can see that we had no adjustments. There's no check mark there. And then these were the dollar amounts that were entered for this particular year. Now, because this particular report that we're working on had a zero balance when we started, that's why it's $700. If it had if there was a balance from the previous year, your ending balance would actually would have increased $700. So if the previous ending balance for the previous fiscal year was $1,000, the ending balance would be $1,700. So now we're going to talk about the composition of the account balance, which comprises three sections. Current cash balance, which is the book balance as of March 31st. It's going to include any of the short-term investment pool. That's going to have its own section. And that's going to be the balance as of March 31st. And then the next section is going to be investments. So there's probably very few reports out there that actually contain investments, but if they do, that information is captured here and then will be reported and on note 2 of the basic financial statements and other supplementary information on the GAAP reporting. So this is the section that we're going to be working on here, the calculation of total book balance. This would be the ending cash balance with the exception of STIP and investments. So you would select yes, enter in the dollar amount, and then click next. Here, if you had STIP investments, you would enter in the amount here. You would first select yes, then you would use the drop-down list here to select the proper fund. And then you would put in that March 31st balance in this field here, and then select next. Any information any dollar amount that's reported here will automatically be moved forward to the bank reconciliation section of the report, which I will show you in a few sections. And then you would enter in any investments if you have investments. One thing I'd like to note is certificate of deposits are not considered investments. They're bank accounts. So now that we've entered that section in, you can see we entered $500 in ending cash balance. We had $100 in STIP and $100 investment. And you can see now we have 2 check marks up here with these 2 sections left to look at. The next section is adjusted book balance. That's going to comprise of the book balance of your particular department or agency. This is either going to be through QuickBooks or an Excel spreadsheet or whatever mechanism that you use to track your balances. Going to be any interest earned as of March 31st, but not recorded in your ledger. And then any other adjustments to book balance that are not included in the March 31st balance. So this is what the screen looks like. This is going to your unreconciled book balance is essentially all your monies together. So this would include your bank account, your STIP fund, and your investments. You would enter that information in the box there and then select next. Any bank interest not recorded, again, that's going to be recorded here on this part. You're going to select yes if you do, and then enter in the dollar amount, and then click next. What I want to note, I guess what I'm going to note right now too is a good time to do it, is if when you're using this application, when you select next, next is as good as save. Save and close will bring you back out to the sole custody activities and reconciliation part. If you were to enter in a number in here, if you select yes and then enter a number and then hit previous, that will not be saved. So to make sure you're saving your information as you're entering it, either select next or select save and close. And then here, the next part would be any adjustments to book balance. And again, if you have any adjustments, you do need to provide an explanation for that adjustment. And this is now, we have 3 sections that have been addressed. So you can see that we had an unreconciled book balance of $650. We had interest not recorded of $50, and now we have the total. Things are starting to agree. And then we're going to talk about the components of the reconciled bank balance. This is going to be the balance, the bank balance per your bank statement as of March 31st. And then you're going to enter in any deposits in transit. These are funds collected on or before March 31st, but not deposited in the bank until after April 1st or later. Any outstanding checks. These are checks issued on or before March 31st, but not paid by the bank. And then if you have any bank reconciling items that are not deposits in transit or outstanding checks. So bank balance page. Any bank account so if you had multiple bank accounts for this report, each would have its own line here. So you would fill in the bank balance per the statement. Once all those bank account balances are filled in, select next. Deposits in transit. So you had deposits in transit, you're going to select yes. You're going to enter in that dollar amount. And then you're going to click next. Same thing with outstanding checks. Any outstanding check as of March 31st, not paid by the bank, that's going to be input here. And then if you have any adjustments to the bank balance, select yes, enter in that dollar amount adjustment, and then why are you making that adjustment? Once that section is done, you can see that we have agreement across the board and we have a finalize button. But what I want to point out is once you click next from the previous screen, it's actually going to take you to the supporting documentation screen. So once you've gone through and finished the bank reconciliation, entering that section, if you click next, it's going to ask you to select, it's going to ask for supporting documentation. We ask that you do provide backup for your report. And what we're looking for support is your bank statement as of March 31st, your bank reconciliation as of March 31st as well, and then any listing of deposits in transit and outstanding checks as of March 31st. Each file will need to be chosen individually, and then once you select the file, you need to hit save, and then it would go into the current document list. You do not need to provide a full year's worth of bank statements or reconciliations. We are just asking for the March 31st, the statements and reconciliation as of March 31st. Once you've attached all the supporting documentation, again, select Next. That brings you to the additional comments screen. And if you have anything else you'd like to tell us that wasn't previously provided, you can put that information here. This is not a required screen or not a required information. And then once you do that, you can select Next. That will take you back out to the sole custody activities and reconciliation page, which had that finalize button. When you select that finalize button, this is the screen that it brings you to. So it'll bring you to the prepared by screen. Fields here, these are required, and they are actually pre-populated based on your login ID. You would now you would push this button here, preparation of this report is complete, and that changes the status from started, which is here, to ready for review. And as you can see, we now have the preparer has done the report, verified all the information, they've completed the reconciliation, and they finalized their work. It is now ready for the reviewer. If as a preparer you realize that a change is needed after you've said you've prepared it, you can click this button here to go back and make any changes. So this changes it ready for review to back to started status. The reviewer, the reviewer can also do this. If the reviewer realizes that an error needs to be made, or it was made, or a change needs to be, something needs to be updated, the reviewer can also select this and return it to started status. One thing to note is if the preparer changes the status back to a started status and makes the change, they need to go back and finalize it once those updates have been made. And also, is if you were making if this was going to be the final time this report was going to be done, this would be the spot that you would close the report after the reporting year. So to close a report, you need to make sure that the balance of the report is 0 and the current bank balance is also 0. So if you had a report that, you had an account that was closed, let's say mid-year, and you knew this was going to be the final report, this is at the stage you would select close this report after the reporting year. And so this is kind of hard to see, but I am logged in as a preparer on this particular screen. And you can see that this is grayed out because the report isn't ready for review status, but it will not let me do the review. So this is at the point that the reviewer must do their thing. One thing to note as well is once the preparation of the report is complete, as a preparer, you probably should inform your reviewer, because the system will not automatically let them know that the report is ready for review. So there should be some communication between the preparer and the reviewer. And that essentially is the sole custody application. If after the report, the reviewer has done their part and they've selected this review of the report is complete, and then you realize that that a change needs to be made, you can contact us. We can make the change for you, or we can return the report to started status so you can make the appropriate changes. So that is an option once it is ready, the report is in OSC review. Basically, once the report is in OSC review, you as an agency are locked out of the report unless we return it to the started status. So some of the common reporting issues that we've seen during this prior year is all deposits and disbursements were reported under other deposits or disbursements, each deposit and disbursement category should be reported as such. So sole custody to sole custody transactions really should be reported under those areas, as well as deposits and disbursements from to or from the state treasury. The only items that really should be under the other category are anything but sole custody, and state treasury. The other thing we saw was using the bank balance adjustment section to record deposits in transit and outstanding checks. Each of these has its own category in this application, so they're accounted for there and not in the bank adjustment part. And then deposits in transit are would only be considered a book adjustment if they weren't recorded in the agency ledger before, or if these monies were received on or before March 31st, but were not recorded in the agency books as of March 31st, if that makes sense. So some additional agency responsibilities include completing the monthly bank account reconciliation. The bank account reconciliation should be filed, or they should be filed with the Commissioner of Taxation and Finance within 7 days of the succeeding month. The guidance for that is provided here in this link and in the Guide to Financial Operations. The record keeping requirement is actually keeping record of your bank statements and reconciliations and any statements of uncashed checks. What I want to point out too is with your bank reconciliations, if you do them on a consistent monthly basis instead of waiting till the end of the year, it'll be a lot easier to make your do your reporting, sole custody reporting. It also makes it easier to detect and correct any errors that may have occurred during that time if you're doing it monthly. So if you're doing it month by month, it's a lot easier to identify and correct the issues that occur instead of waiting to the year end and try to trace everything back from, if you're in April and then trying to find a transaction that happened back in May of the previous year, it kind of makes it difficult could make it difficult to complete things accurately. So, again, sole custody accounts must be reconciled by the custodial agency on a monthly basis. Reconciliation should be completed within 5 to 7 days of the month end and reviewed by management. And then documentation of the reconciliation and review must be maintained or retained. Here's a simplistic version of a bank reconciliation. You have your month-end balance, you're going to add in any deposits in transit, any outstanding checks, and then you're going to subtract any outstanding checks, and then any other adjustments that you may have, and this becomes your reconciled bank balance. Other things to consider is if you have report consolidation, if you have more than one report that have the same purpose, or if you're reporting a STIP fund and a related bank account of two separate reports, these possibly can combine into two reports, or if you have multiple bank accounts having the same fund and purpose and each of them has an individual report, these could possibly be reported on one report instead of multiple reports. So for example, last year we worked with the Department of Corrections. They had 31 separate reports having the same fund and purpose. We were able to consolidate those reports down to one report with 31 accounts. And if you're not sure if report consolidation would work with you, just ask us. We'll look into it. We'll work with you to see if it's a possibility. Any uncashed checks, the statement, any uncashed checks for more than a year really should be paid over to the abandoned property fund. And then guidance for that is available in the operations advisories available at this link on this page. And then just basically any other, a couple of the common questions. What if your beginning balance is wrong? If your beginning balance is wrong, the opening balance actually cannot be changed, but that we do use that adjustment process to adjust that opening balance. So again, a positive adjustment will increase deposits and increase your balance. A negative adjustment will increase disbursements, thereby decreasing your balance. And an explanation for the adjustment will be required. And then the other common question that we see is, do you file a sole custody report for account that was closed? And the simple answer is reports must be filed for an account that was closed during the fiscal year. A report cannot be closed if the ending balance is zero. If you did not close the report after the reporting year, when you finalized it, like what I showed you just a few slides ago, you will have to report that. You'll have to file another report for the coming year until you actually close that report. And I just wanted to let you know that we are here to help. Here's our contact information. You can reach us at FinRep, or you can contact us directly at our emails provided here. And now I'll take any questions. Okay, we have a question. If selected to provide documentation, would OSC only ask for March 31st bank reconciliation and for our March reconciliation or all bank reconciliation? So I mentioned that when providing the documentation, we are only looking for the March 31st bank statement and bank reconciliation, as well as a list of outstanding checks as of March 31st and deposits in transit. For any new employee that needs access to sole custody, how would they get access? Contact us. Send us an email to FinRep with the employee's name, email address, phone number, and department that they need access to. And we will set them up as a user. Once we set any new users to the system, will receive 2 emails from Online Services at OSC. Online Enrollment Services, I think that's the email it comes from. One email will contain the user ID. The other email will contain their temporary password. So everybody has their own unique user ID and password. Another question was, did I understand correctly that for the purpose of sole custody reporting, petty cash accounts are not considered sole custody accounts? They are not considered sole custody accounts that require reporting. Petty cash accounts are not considered sole custody accounts and should not be reported on this application. I believe there is another reporting mechanism for them, but it's not through the sole custody application. And then we had a future wish list, which we'll note to our team that does our application, if this is something that we can do. So there basically, can you get an automatic email sent to the reviewer after the preparer has finished the report, and to get a confirmation after the report has been submitted to OSC to say that we've received it. We can certainly bring these up to our developers at some point. It might be part of a future enhancement, but right now, unfortunately, it's not part of the application. So I'd like to thank you for joining us today. If you have any additional questions regarding this presentation, or if you think of something afterwards, you can contact us at the FinRep mailbox, or you can contact Pushbu or myself. Thank you so much.